What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? How you guys doing? It has been a minute since I've been on a live stream that wasn't a test stream, and I'm back. Yes, sir, I'm back. Some of you might think that's cool. Others may not. Whatever. We'll cross all those bridges as we get there. But man, there is a lot to go over. Everything from what's going on here with the state party, RPW, Turning Point, AFP, Monster Liberty, you name it. We got protests all up and down the city, actually around the nation. Apparently, there is this hands-off movement going on. Let's see here. I want to share this here real quick before I bring my guests on. Obviously, the stock market, crypto markets, they are tanking right now. So if you're an investor, now might be a buying opportunity. I'm not a financial advisor. Do not take financial advice from me. I'm just a dude on the internet who happens to really like these type of things. But let's take a quick look at that here, just to kind of give you some context. Obviously, this has a lot to do with Trump's tariffs that are going on. And let's see. Let me share the screen. I'm going to first start with the crypto markets. Let's take a look at that right now. And if you're taking a look at the screen here, you'll see Bitcoin is down quite a bit here, $79,000 here, down about half a point on a 24-hour time frame. Ethereum down massively, $1,576. What's interesting about Ethereum is the Trump Foundation is doing a lot of buying of Ethereum. I got to do a better job of sharing these links here to let you know what, like, World Liberty Financial, the Trump team, and what they're doing here. Obviously, this is a crypto presidency. He's made note about his crypto strategic reserve, and he talks about in particular. He talked about Ethereum. He talked about XRP. He talked about Cardano. I believe, I can't remember what the fifth one was. Somebody remind me. Was it, might have been Solana. I'm not sure. Yeah, it was Solana. And then, of course, you've got Bitcoin, which is going to be the big boy on campus. So all of these are down quite a bit. Let's see. Let's go. We're going to move over here to the stock market, and I want to take a look at that just to kind of give you guys some. No, wrong button. Now, obviously, the stock market's closed today. It's closed over the weekend. But what's going to happen tomorrow morning? Are we going to see a huge sell-off? Are we going to see people buying? That's what's going to be interesting. And by the way, in this column right here, where it talks about the growth here, you look at there's actually a lot of green in the tech stocks. But if you look at the percentage change right over in this column, and that's all red, everybody's taking hits. Everybody from Microsoft, Nvidia. If you look at Tesla down here on the 24-hour time period, they are down 10.42%. Buying opportunity. I'm just saying, if you got cash in available, if you got some powder that's dry, ready to rock, that might be an opportunity. Again, not financial advice, just some things I like to go over. So things we want to be aware of, things we want to talk about in the future. A lot to go over here. Let's take a look here. Obviously, we have the chat room up here. So let's, before we bring guests on, let's establish a few different rules here. First and foremost, be kind, be courteous, be respectful. Think about politics. You know it. I know it. It's a contact sport. People like to go for blood. And usually I'm with that. But right now, I want to keep things in a conversational manner. So I'm going to ask you, if you're going to be out of pocket, I'm going to boot you. If you're going to be confrontational, if you want to have a strong conversation, I'm all for that. But we're not going to take chat comments right away. Probably do it at the end of the episode. We're probably looking to go about an hour long, okay? So I'm going to have two guests on here tonight. If you guys have suggestions for other guests to come on board at later times, please feel free to hit me up privately, and we will arrange that. You guys know I'm very available, very easy to find, very easy to get a hold of. So my first guest is going to be Stephanie Soucek. You guys might know her. She is she's the chairwoman for the Door County Republican Party, also the 8th Congressional District Chair, the outgoing one. And then I'm also going to be joined by Orlando Owens. You guys might have known him when he was running for the state treasurer's office in 2022, and for his work in Project Move the Needle. And as luck would have it, I have both you guys here in the back room. Why don't you guys come on up front and let's chop this bad boy up. What's going on, folks? How you guys living?
Good to be on here again.
I'm well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Stephanie. You hearing him?
Yep, I can hear. Yep, everybody's good.
All right. Beautiful. So let's get this started because there's so much to go over. And I know we talked about a little bit what we want to do here tonight. And I think there's a lot of topics to go into. And let's first start and address the elephant in the room as it relates to the election that happened last Tuesday with the loss for Brad Schimmel, with the loss for Brittany Kinzer. And there was a lot of pointing of fingers around. And I don't know. I think there is enough blame to go around for everybody, but I feel like a lot of people are missing the boat on what the biggest reason for those losses were. But I want to get your guys' input. We're going to start with Stephanie, Mooch, Orlando, and just kind of roundtable it and go from there.
Sure. So, I mean, I'll try not to take too long. I mean, there's a lot to dig into. I think, I was looking at the numbers, and we actually had a fairly good turnout considering that Brad got more votes than Janet Protasiewicz in 2023. And you would think typically that would be enough. We also, we had a goal of, we knew we wanted to get over 60% of Trump voters out because we felt like that would be potentially enough to win. Excuse me. Sorry. And then, I think people underestimated how intense the backlash and anger has been from the left. And it's one of the first opportunities for them to make a statement, whether it was Trump or Elon Musk. And we always, I think we've switched voters I know we have.
Yes.
We used to have pretty consistent, reliable voters with the suburban vote, with college educated, women, college educated women. We have lost some of those people in the WOW counties. And then we've picked up different voters that are blue collar, average working, blue collar workers. And they're just not, and Trump brought those people into the party. I mean, he drew them in. And so the key has been trying to get enough of those people out to vote in these spring elections. And then there's, I think progress was made as far as we had a fairly good turnout. It clearly wasn't nearly enough. And so we'll have to break down, what I think short-term goals are obviously always necessary. Long-term goals, like when we take back the culture, those are long-term goals. So long-term goal, how do we get even more people that are new to the party out to vote in these spring elections? And it's a process. It's not just an overnight thing. So,
Orlando, your thoughts?
I think there's definitely a lot of takeaway, and I don't know if it's tonight's show to go into detail, but I definitely agree with what Stephanie said in her analysis of what we saw, a very motivated voter on the left that is extremely upset with the Trump administration and losing the last election. And I think we didn't account for the level of anger. Anger is a motivator. Passion is a motivator. But were our voters passionate enough to come out again? And I think I've seen so many analyses as far as so many different organizations who went after the Trump voter. And I think we missed a really big word in there, Trump voter. Didn't mean Republican voter, didn't mean conservative voter, the Trump voter, right? And they went after this group, but I think there was a lot of people that were still left on the board. In my project, we really were not activated in the cycle at all, in any major, impact. And it was just like everyone looked at the Trump voter. Let's turn out the Trump voter. But the problem was Trump wasn't on the ticket. And so
Right.
that's a concern. When Trump is not on the ticket, will people be motivated enough to still come out? Now, there are polling supposedly have been come out and showing Brad was down, and that's why Trump endorsed it. Allegedly, that's what Dan O'Donnell said, that they're polling that Trump campaign used and saw that Brad was down, and that's why he endorsed him on a Friday night, the same day that George Foreman passed. Which again, you can't predict that, but it was a Friday night dump supposedly. So I don't know. I think that was one of the issues that we missed. I think there were some things that with the Brad campaign that I think there should have been made some more connections. I think part of it, especially when the area where I have some expertise in the urban vote, but also the rural vote, and I just say with people in general, right? You have to make the issues of the day connect to the campaign. Voter ID with Crawford, who actually was the lead attorney or was on the team against voter ID, never really came up in the campaign. Like that should have been an issue that could broaden out Brad's campaign to bring in more people that may have been moved by the issue. We have single issue voters or few issue voters. You have to find issues that really connect the people, that motivate them to turn out. And once you find that issue, you have to drive it home. So I've seen so many commercials for Brad. Law and Order. I think he had one abortion video, which I thought was really good. He talked about his personal belief, but also he felt like the 3 exceptions. He talked about his own story about him and his wife not able to conceive children, adoption, how life is precious to them. But also said, as a justice, it is not my job to legislate. It is my job just to interpret the law of the people. And this decision should be left to the people. And so I think that there could have been a lot more campaigning on that issue. And honestly, you have to tap in the fatigue level. Just on a very tough election for President Trump, people were fatigued and tired. I think that may play a role. And without the elephant there, some say the infighting amongst the conservatives between Turning Point and the RPW and whatever that supposedly played a role. And I don't know if much is about that had a role in the vote turnout, but as far as organizing, possibly. But I don't think they had that had any effect, I think, on the actual voter of doing the.
I think the other thing to point out is because, and this has been brought up by a few people about because Trump is going so hard and fast, and it's necessary. I mean, it's kind of like, and this is why I think elected officials are skittish sometimes about like going real hard and fast on things, like going deep versus like just cutting around the edges, is because it's messy. And then you face backlash sometimes, and you're thinking about the next election, right? So that's like, but we need to do this process is going to have to play out to deal with these deeper issues that have been a long time problem. And, people have disagreements on our side about tariffs. But right now, obviously, there's this messy process. There's Doge trying to dig into all the waste and get rid of the waste. The left is using that to motivate people and to freak people out and whatever. So I think those things play a role in just the fact that he's actually going really, I mean, a lot of conservatives are excited about that, but the left and even people in the middle are not sure what to think. They don't understand it's kind of chaotic, right? So.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I take into account when I looked at what happened this past Tuesday, and I think everybody's right to, like I said, to a certain degree, but I think one of the things that people tend to miss is the fact that Trump himself was able to piecemeal this coalition of groups together, the disenfranchised young Black and Hispanic male that are, they want to have a job, they want to have a family, they want a future. The Gen X, which was one of the biggest voting blocks that got Trump over the top here, that group there, and they're, so segmented as well as, in terms of what are issues that are most important. A lot of people aren't as politically plugged in. And I think this speaks to some of the strengths to the county party systems, but also some of the weaknesses, that it's not as influential as they think that it is. And this would hold true, I believe, for Turning Point, for AFP, for Moms for Liberty. And a lot of it is not through any fault of any one organization, but rather the normie that came out to vote in the election is not the one that's going to come out and vote in the spring election. And I think that's overlooked because there's so many people wanting to place blame on who's at fault, who didn't do what, rather than say, you know what do we got to do to reach these people? Because when you ask around, who is so-and-so from organization X, Y, or Z, nobody's going to know. People barely know who their congressman or their state senator or their state representative is. So,
that's true.
And tell me I'm wrong about that. But I think this is a good segue, because if you think about the infighting that's happening within the Republican Party, and I know it's happening on the left too, but they seem to be able to bury the hatchet in each other's back long enough to go out and protest. By the way, I think it's going to get wild because weather is going to start breaking nice. And you know what happens when weather gets nice? Democrats all of a sudden come out of their caves, and it's a whole horrible situation.
They were out on Saturday, apparently.
Yeah, Appleton, Oshkosh, Milwaukee.
It was like a nationwide organized protest. Yeah.
I would add again, man. I'll just add, and I was, forgive me, everybody. I was trying to shoot out the link and text people to watch, and hopefully we got some people watching it. And please like and share. And I got it on my platform as well, on both of my pages, and also I got it on my X page too. But I think again, we just have to understand, and so many groups, including my organization, benefited from having a great candidate in Donald Trump. And also we have to look at what the other side did in a very toxic candidate in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and then Tim Walz, right? So you didn't have in this election, no shade, Ed, but we did not have the era of the podcasters, right? We didn't have We didn't have Theo Vaughn. We didn't have that massive, place that so many other people, not just Gen Xers or Gen Zs or whatever, people who may not even plug in the mainstream media anymore. We didn't have those outlets, right? And I get it. It wasn't, I think Brad tried to make it a national election, right? And tried to go out and make it a national issue. And I think that was Elon Musk's attempt as well, too. I think Elon Musk did a great job when he came to Green Bay, for Elon Musk. Now, some would differ. I don't know if it was a Brad Schimmel campaign stop versus a Elon Musk explanation of what he's doing with Doge. I think that, it could have waited another week, right? Because it really wasn't a Brad Schimmel campaign stop unless Elon was going to turn and make the issues connect to the election. He gave much more of a broader presentation of what they were doing in DC, and made the connection of the importance of the maps because of what these judges were saying, or the justice was saying before, or judge was saying before the election. But I think it turned into more of a TED talk about Doge and Elon Musk, and it kind of got lost in translation.
It really did. As soon as the questions and question and answers happened, it became a lot more about what he was doing, what Doge was doing, and it lost its focus on the Schimmel campaign for sure. But and I don't know if that was enough to to make any moves, to move the needle, as it were. But let's go back here. Let's go back pre-election. Because obviously there are caucuses that have been held all over the place, congressional caucuses. We had ours, I want to say, about a month and a half ago here in the 6th Congressional. The 8th Congressional had theirs recently. And, of course, the 5th Congressional had theirs last night. And then, of course, we got county issues, too. So let's start with Stephanie, who's in the 8th. And I want to focus primarily on this one here in Orlando. Feel free to jump in at any time. But obviously, for those of us that are plugged in the know, there was a lot of tension going on in the 8th Congressional Caucus here. And I think this speaks to what we were talking about already. You got various groups out there vying for power, vying for what they see as the right way going forward. You got, and I don't even know what the hell the word establishment means anymore. I wish somebody would tell me that.
You are.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm waiting for my card and the paycheck.
To Orlando.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
For my card and my paycheck and my retirement, benefit package. I don't know.
Right. I didn't
Was
get
that
the
part of it?
invite.
I haven't gotten any of that yet. So,
But yeah, I mean, obviously, you got people that have been quote unquote establishment. These are folks that have been in the system, that have worked within the system, as it were. They could have been in the system for the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. You're still establishment. Then you got so-called patriot groups. Then you got turning point groups. Then you got all kinds of different groups that are kind of jockeying to be the head of the table. And it really seems like some of this has gotten really contentious because if you're paying attention on social media, you've seen the back and forth, between Wisconsin right now, Jessica McBride and Ken Sikora, Joel Bartel, and a whole host of other people, and I can just see it, you dropped my name. Yes, I did. You're part of the story. Get used to it. But you, Stephanie, were directly impacted by this. So I don't know. How do you want to do this? Do we want to let's start with the delegate process, because that's really where it all started, and kind of give us a timeline and kind of go from there as you know it.
sure. I think it helps just kind of briefly lay a background, because there's a lot of stuff that has led up to, like, when I became the district chair, actually, in early December. And so there were things that different dynamics in our district, and there's a lot of things that impacted how things played out in the past 4 months or so.
So you've
And it
only been
really,
the chair since December, the district
yes,
chair?
yes. So I was the
Okay, so
vice
we're talking a
chair,
few months.
right? So I was the vice chair from mid 2023. Got elected at the caucus and then took over after the state convention. And for anybody who's not aware, the chairs and the vice chairs of each district have a seat at the at the state party. So that's how that works. So there's, I would say there was always, there's the two counties, Wapaka and Oconto, that I think everybody knows about me, that knows me well, knows that I really do try to work with everybody as best I can. And for the most part, I've been able to do that all my years in politics since I got involved in 2012. So my goal has always been to find common ground, work on unifying people. Like, I don't focus on what divides us. I have tried to focus on what unites us. Sometimes what I would say now is there are certain people that it is 100% their way or the highway. And it's very hard to find common ground, because, and I have tried to, there's times where I've agreed with those guys on things, and I've brought stuff up to RBW. I've tried to work through different things. My approach is very different. I don't believe in insulting everybody, and threatening people publicly. I have a very different approach. It does not mean I'm afraid to stand up for what I believe in or push back on things, like with this this what is it called? Right of first refusal, right?
Yes.
So I've spoken out against that. I am not afraid to say that. I'm not afraid to try to get people in the legislature to be against it. But what I would say is, the reason I want to lay this groundwork is to explain the environment that I and many people have been working in the past 4 months, because people don't understand if they're not in it. Even people who know about it and they haven't gone through it, it's really hard to make them understand. But I would say that I was actually thinking about reading something about what a narcissist is, because that's what many of us feel like we've been dealing with. And that's a pretty strong word, but I'm about to read something that I came across that really felt like what I've been dealing with, and a few other people that are in leadership in our district, other county chairs, have had to work through and work with, and it's been very difficult. And then I'll definitely go into the delegate process. I'll go into what led up to that, rules and constitutions and all that. But I'm trying to give people a picture of what it's been like. And it has not been easy. So I'm going to read this.
Can I interrupt you, Steph, before you go into the definition?
Yep.
For those who may not know, there is a story coming out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I did an interview, and those guys were interviewed as well. So you'll hear both sides. And it's out of Madison, so it's a local news station out of Madison. And I've been very quiet overall. The reason I've been so quiet is, number one, I have been concerned about facing more bullying and intimidation. Number two, the race for Brad Schimmel, Supreme Court, I was really concerned that I didn't want to take away from focusing on that. And so as I'm seeing all this false information and my name being included in different things, and I felt like some of it was slander. I had to do my best to ignore it and just figure, you know what, at some point I'll share my side. I'll tell the truth and people can decide what they want to believe. But I had to just trust that over time I'd be able to share my side. My character would withstand the attacks that have come against me. And so I was pretty nervous doing the interview, but I was able to, I was comfortable talking with her, but I just knew, like, okay, this is getting out there. And what else am I going to, like, what other backlash is going to come? So,
and this is your first public,
yes,
first commentary publicly, yes. Right.
First public comments. I made like one or two comments on like another post where it was being discussed. And I wanted to clarify because some people were asking questions. I go, okay, I'll clarify some things, but I did not want to get in like this huge back and forth. And I didn't.
Real quick. I just want to, I know I said I was going to probably hold on to the chats until later on in this episode, but I want to throw a few of them out here. One, because some of them are funny, and two, because I want to give a shout out to some folks here. We got Kelly Raw, and I'm probably mispronouncing her last name there. Yeah, I think. Anyone who volunteered prior to 2020, and by the way, as an FYI to everybody, these are volunteer positions. Folks aren't getting paid for this. I mean, well, let me take that back. There are third-party organizations that are getting paid, but if you're running for these type of things,
right?
But
we're not getting paid.
I'm throwing shade, but I'm not throwing shade. I'm doing me. Real quick here, John. I love this guy. John's awesome. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Indeed. Liz brings up an excellent point here. Absolutely, people do need to let go of their egos. 100%. She also added in here, Stephanie is awesome.
That's a new word.
Like that. Awesomeness. We like that. We got Jim Pavarchek, and I know I mispronounced his name here. I always do. What's going on?
Pavarchek.
Well, I'm still trying to master your last name, and you got 6 letters, so there's
Just
that.
Think of so and then a check mark. Soucek.
Yep. So. But please carry on.
Yeah. So, and again, like I'm feeling a little more at ease now, but I can tell you my stomach had butterflies coming on this live, because just with some of the stuff that's even the last few days been put out there, I feel like there's gaslighting going on. I feel like the script has been flipped. And so I just want to speak the truth. I want to try to correct some things and just be sincere about everything. So, but I'm going to just read this just to lay it out, what I feel like I've been dealing with and other people in our district. Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Narcissistic relationships don't follow normal relationship rules. They aren't built on love, respect, or compromise. They run on power, control, and manipulation. You can't reason with someone who twists every conversation to benefit them. You can't have a healthy argument with someone who refuses to take accountability. You can't fix a relationship that was never meant to be equal in the first place. You will explain yourself until you have nothing left. You will replay the conversation in your head, trying to make sense of something that was designed to confuse you. You will try to get them to understand, but they understand just fine. They just don't care. And when you finally react, when you get tired of the gaslighting, the lies, the mind games, that is when they flip the script. It is called reactive abuse. They push you to your breaking point, then stand back and watch you explode. Then they call you unstable, dramatic, too emotional. They turn to everyone else and say, see, look what I have to deal with. They didn't see the gaslighting. They didn't see the manipulation. They didn't see how many times you swallowed your pain just to keep the peace. They only saw your reaction. And that is exactly what the narcissist wanted. So in a leadership role, when I'm supposed to be able to be forthright and honest and communicate with people about what they need to be doing, and if they're not doing the right thing, or if they break rules, and I've got to approach them about it and they don't care, or they ignore it and then they turn it on you, and like you approach them and then you're the one who broke the rules because they flip it on you. They try to accuse you. So, and it wasn't always that bad. Let me just make a point. I dealt with those guys fine for a while, and then we'd have some episodes. Like all last year, there was times where it was fine at times. I would have conversations. We would sort through some stuff. But again, it was very hard to find that common ground at times even when I agreed with them, there were times where it didn't feel good enough. I want to read an email here, and I'm just going to leave the name out because I don't want to name names, although it's maybe obvious, it could be a handful of people. I'm going to call him Frank. So I'm reading an email that I wrote to a handful of chairs about a certain topic regarding the, the reduced postage mailing rate that is used by RPW that right now incumbents use. And there was an argument, or not an argument, but there was a discussion about whether or not people who are running primaries against incumbents should get to use that mailing rate. Okay. So it's a short email. So I said, and I was addressing Rich Kukstorf, I said, it makes total sense, Rich. The thing with Frank is he gets so little of what he wants because he goes about it in such an aggressive and ineffective way. He hurts his own efforts. He burns bridges, insults people he disagrees with, won't take responsibility where he's been wrong, and threatens and shames people to try to get his way. I'm totally open to debating what could potentially be changed regarding the reduced mailer rate and disclaimer, but I won't do it because someone is bullying or threatening me. I'll do it because I think it's worth looking into. And frankly, the angry message Frank left me the other day had a threatening tone to it and made me feel uncomfortable. Not unsafe physically, just uncomfortable. I did text him back and forth tonight and told him why I won't put out a statement tomorrow, but it didn't get us anywhere. Okay, and that was from August 4th. So this was before I became the district chair, but I was the vice chair, and I communicated a lot with most of the chairs in the district. And I actually felt like I had a good relationship overall because I was trying to communicate and help people out where there were issues. And I would bring stuff to RPW. All that to say, when I became the chair of the district in early December, there were some things that occurred that blew things up further. Now, I will say that I haven't always agreed with how RPW has handled things at times. I think there were letters sent out. They were what do you call that? There were warnings, notifications saying, "Hey, you guys." Advisories. Sure. You violated the Constitution in this way or that way, whatever. And there should have been more information in those initial letters. So I agree. I think the timing was a little weird because it had been many months later. Okay. I think there was concern about the election because there's always an election. And just like this last election, trying to make sure everybody's working, firing on all cylinders, doing their part to win the election last year. And so I think, the timing was off. I do think 2 of those counties were pretty clear violating their constitutions. Brown County, I think there was a case there, but maybe it wasn't quite as strong as the other 2. All that to say that blew up.
Just so we have context, we're talking about Brown County, we're talking about Oconto County, we're talking about Waupaca County.
Yes, sorry. Thank you for clarifying that.
And I just wanted to bring that to the forefront so that we know that there's
sometimes that,
right
in my head,
no, fair enough. But please.
Yeah. So, okay. So, but what I noticed too is I felt like there was a little more hostility after the election in November. These letters came out sometime in December, but I sensed that something had flipped and I didn't know what it was. So, and I have my thoughts about that. I might save that for another time. All that to say, I decided to run for district chair based on, but I just want to make this clear. Nobody from RBW, nobody reached out to me and said, we want you to run. Nobody. I had people in the district. I had several county chairs who wanted me to run and they encouraged me to run. And I was contemplating, do I want to do this? Vice chair is not the same as chair because the role is different. You have more responsibility. The more fire comes at you, you have to deal with more of the conflict a little bit more. Although I certainly tried to do what I could in my role as vice chair to communicate and help. So all that to say, I decided to run. I heard Ken was running. So I knew I was going to have to, work the different counties that, there's certain counties that I knew I'd have to work a little harder. I'm going to leave out some stuff right now that I'm not ready to share. For
Fair enough.
Certain reasons. So I will just fast forward to January. Let me just think. Okay. So I found out at some point, from various people that there was an effort to, I would say, restrict the delegate process. Now, me talking about this is intimidating because I was told in a text thread after the caucus had happened in Brown County that I should not be spreading misinformation, that I should stop if I am. So it's uncomfortable for me to say this, but I not only sensed, but I understood that they were trying to restrict the delegate process to favor Ken in what I believed was an unfair way. Now, I had reached out to numerous people to make calls to people that they knew in Brown County. I got the sense that some people didn't want to deal with the drama. They didn't want to be in the middle of it. I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up at caucus. Sometimes people say they're going to do stuff and then they don't, So that's all part of it, of course. But having said that, I show up at the Brown County caucus and I'm going to speak as the district chair, give an update. And so I watched the whole process play out. Now, for people who don't understand what the process usually looks like, and I'm going to try not to get in the weeds, I apologize, but I know a lot of people don't know unless they're heavily involved. So typically what happens, I'm a county chair. So in my county, we have a committee. Every county party has a committee of probably 3 people. And each constitution will say like how many people you should have in this committee to get people to sign up to be delegates, to organize that. And usually for me, I'll tell the committee, okay, reach out to all the past delegates who have been delegates before. And then I'll send an email out to all members. If you'd like to be a delegate, let me know. And then I'll also, we have a membership form where if there's people that have signed up to be a delegate on that, if they're interested, rather, we'll put them on list. So it's usually a pretty good amount. I have 41 delegates allowed in my county. I'm a smaller county. In Brown, there are 318 delegate spots allowed. The goal is not to restrict people from becoming delegates. It's to fill all those delegate spots if you can. You very well may not. I mean, in a lot of the bigger counties.
Most counties don't.
Yeah, most counties
don't.
Most
counties don't, including Milwaukee County. We never have enough people.
Because you have so many, right? What a lot of larger counties do is they say, we're just going to make all members. Outagamie County did that. We're going to make all our members delegates by default of their member and their member in good standing. That's in the constitutions where it says, you just have to be a member in good standing by whatever date. For my county, it's at least 10 days before the caucus. Some have more. Some have 30 days. So So anyways, so basically you don't want Democrats becoming delegates. I get that. You don't want some plant coming in, right? But you shouldn't be vetting people based on whether or not they are going to support this person or this topic or issue.
Referendum, because
referendum, right?
I can tell you that we had a situation in which there was a debate on, even in Milwaukee County, that the chair Hilario tried to make the assumption like we had too many members to be delegates, and supposedly we had 700 people, we only had 500 spots. Julian Bradley, the chair of the caucus, said, well, you do know you have alternate. So you basically have double the amount. And he never tried to explain that to
100%.
So again, more spots. So we shouldn't have to have a litmus test. So if you're going to support, the 501c4 referendum on who should be, on the board or not, there should never be a litmus test, because we have way more than enough seats. Go ahead, Ms. Steffi. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's fine to get clarification on some of that, like the alternates. Yeah. If you fill all your delegate spots, which again, a lot of times doesn't happen, but if you do, especially in a larger county, in a smaller county, in fact, I think we had a couple alternates in my own county, again, because we had 41. We have a lot more members than delegate spots. Milwaukee is at the opposite. I'm assuming you have way more delegate spots than members. So the other thing I would say is I'm not going to say names. Somebody was going around with a list of who to not vote for. So basically the Brown County, their board, their nominating committee is what it's called, for delegates, had, I think, 11 people. And then originally they put 2 alternates, which doesn't make sense, because if you only had 11 spots filled, you would just do 13 versus making 2 separate alternate spots.
Correct.
But all that to say, so they had that set. And for people who reached out, I don't know, maybe early to mid-January, they were told that they already had their delegate list decided, but then you could run from the floor. Okay, so there was a list that they had that somebody would be added to run from the floor. So I don't know if I've ever seen it where people have to stand up and give their background and share how they've been involved. And then you take a vote, a yes, no vote on each person individually. I could be wrong. I'm just not familiar with if that's happened, or if I would think it would be rare. But so everybody had to get up and speak. Now, interestingly enough, 2 people that said they would vote in favor or against the amendment, they would vote no on the 501c4 amendment, which there was an amendment with the state party that was proposed that it was saying that no paid member of a 501c4 could be part of the state party. The state party. That's it. There was a lot of confusion out there.
Board, right? Not the county.
Correct. Not the county. So, okay. So all that to say, not even at the district level, except to say those who would be on the committee at the state level. So I happen to vote no on it because I was not sure about the parameters. I was not totally convinced. And also I knew it would probably blow up the way it did. But all that to say, even so, they still weren't, they were voted against. Now, I will say this. I'm not against, I think new members that were part of the Brown County caucus, I think there was a fair amount of new people there. To be fair, I don't think they understood typically how the delegate process works. I think they just thought, well, this is just like an election, like any other election. But again, when you have a certain amount of spots, it actually says in the Constitution that the responsibility of the executive committee to assure a full slate of delegates. So again, if you have enough spots available, you shouldn't be turning people away who are members of good standing. And I'm pretty sure all five of these members have been delegates in the past. They have volunteered numerous hours over the years. They've been involved in different leadership roles at times. 2 of them, I didn't even ask to be delegates. I didn't even talk to 2 of them about being a delegate. So all that to say, it was, to me, I disagreed with how they handled that process. Now, jump ahead. I was included in a group text and after the fact, and with some of these guys. And I was asking questions about why did you guys handle it that way, basically? And you guys should be including people. Well, I was shamed. I was made to feel like you shouldn't be asking us questions. You know, again, like I said, if you're spreading misinformation, I ask you to stop. And I felt very ganged up on and made me feel intimidated to speak up and say something. Granted, I want to remind everybody, as a district chair, it is not my job to represent just 3 county chairs or 3 counties. It is my job to represent all the chairs in the district and try to address their concerns, and all the members. So if there are members of county parties who feel disenfranchised, I want to hear them out and hear their side. So that's the Brown County situation. Then we had Oconto, who had their caucus later, a little later than that. I think it was early October, actually the same day as mine. It was the same day as mine. And I couldn't be there. So that there were issues with the caucus, but I'm not even going to get into that. Fast forward further. At one point, I'd sent out numerous emails. I think January 30th, there was a few emails from Ty and from me. So there were 6 or I think there were 7 actually, 7 emails that were sent to all the county chairs in the district about what our Constitution says.
Is that Representative Ty Bodden?
Yes. So Ty Bodden was our district secretary. Yes. So our Constitution says you have to get your delegate list in at least 25 days before the caucus. You have to turn it into the district chair and the district secretary. So between me and Ty, we had sent out, I think, 7 reminders to people, to chairmen, to get their delegate lists into us once they get their caucuses done. 4 of those emails, and I have proof of it, 4 of those emails were very explicit about the deadline. 2 of those emails included the Constitution and cited the part where it talks about 25 days before the caucus. Now, there's there's 2 spots in that. Well, I'm not going to read it. There in the Constitution, in the district Constitution, it says only those delegates that abide by this certain section of the Constitution shall be seated at caucus. Okay. Then there's in the rules. There's once you get past the main part of the Constitution, in the rules, it says no delegates shall be seated unless they complied with this part of the Constitution, which is, it talks about getting your delegate lists in on time and your delegate fees into the treasurer by the district treasurer by, I think it was 15 days before the caucus. Okay. I'm not a stickler. Like if somebody's slightly late and they have a good reason and they're apologetic, I'm going to hear them out.
Mistakes happen and life gets
yeah. I'm like, I'm not going
to
make a big, whatever about it. But after all those reminders I sent, I'd reached out to Ken and I said, hey, Ken, what, like, and this was, I texted him and I said, I didn't get anything. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I said, I didn't get anything. Ty didn't get anything from you yet. Did you send it to the right email? But he told me, he texted me saying he has suspended the rules like they did before. And he would get me the list that, I think that was a Thursday. And then it was the next Monday. He would get it to me that following Monday. And at that point I was frustrated because I'm like, how many times did we have, it was stressed no later than, I mean, it's very explicit. And it was all the chairs and he was included. And I know he read some of them for different reasons, but one of them we had a meeting that was going to be a Zoom meeting, and he knew about the meeting and was on the meeting. And one of those emails had the deadline in that where the reference to the meeting was. So all this is
to be clear.
Yes.
All of these things, for those who may not know the process, because I'm a member, chair, whatever at my own level. there's deadlines you have to meet in order to, with your membership and a few other criteria in order to be a delegate or a member, in the voting years, right? So if there's a deadline that you didn't get your membership in time, then you technically cannot
I turn people away. I turn people away from my county who they after the fact, they wanted to be delegates, but they didn't update their membership in time. Yeah. And I'm like, sorry.
Somebody pointed that out.
They would have voted for me, I'm sure. Like, honestly, like I was like, oh,
somebody pointed that out in the chat, and this might be for their county, or it might be an overall thing, but they said something, I think it was like 30 days if you're a new member, or 10 days if you're an existing member before your county caucus. Again, I don't know.
I think it's renewing, whether you're a new member or if you're renewing, you just have to pay your dues. Like, you have to pay your dues at least 10 days before. Like, that's my county is 10 days before. So, and again, I can only chase people down so much,
Right. And ours is 28 days, 30 days as a new member, 10 days or 9 days for a renewing member. If you miss
so you have a specification. Yeah.
Right. If you miss those deadlines, I guess it could be a hearing. It could be, some type of, a combination, I guess, for, but not on mask. If you have a ton of people who just miss, that's part of being an active member, is reading your handbook and knowing the rules, knowing what the guidelines are, knowing the requirements of any organization you join. That's your responsibility. And also whoever you may be reporting to explain, here are the deadlines. We got to get this in by a certain amount of time. Monies have to be in. We're not running the Johnny come lately by the seat of your pants organization. We're running the organization here. Here is your dues. Here's your due date. Here's the membership cutoff. If you don't get this X, Y, and Z, these things are spelled out. Go ahead, Ms. Stephanie.
Yeah, let me throw this real quick here too. A couple of things I wanted to do. We're approaching the hour marker. We're going to continue this conversation right here, right now. Guys, make sure you like and share this page, whether you're doing it on Facebook or YouTube. I would actually kind of prefer that one, but whatever you do, share it out, get this information out. We want to make sure that we're fighting censorship, because I don't care what brand of conservatism you're rocking, censorship is an issue on these big platforms. YouTube, X is a lot better. Facebook is bad. Instagram, TikTok, all those are bad, but we still got to be there as part of the cultural conversation that needs to be had. Very important. Something here I want to dip into real quick conversationally, and I think this is very pertinent to the overall conversation. And Jim asked this question here, because he says here, I'd like to know if Stephanie or others felt intimidated by that tactic, and if it had an influence on how they voted. This is important because there's been allegations going on here of a feel of intimidation. And if this is something that is part of it, is this something that is going to be the norm going forward with executive board membership, leadership, as it were? One more quick plug real quick. If you or someone you know wants to be a part of the show, hit me up. You got my number. You can hit me up with a message. However, we'll set something up. We'll go from there. Stephanie, take this one, please.
Okay, so I don't know enough about Brown County to know if, I don't know. I'm not afraid. I'm hesitant to say that, because again, I don't know people well enough to know if, they were intimidated or not, or if they really felt like if they really wanted to vote that way. I'm assuming Jim is referring to who they voted for district chair, or is that what he's referring to? But the other thing is, I can tell you,
I think it might have something to do with the lawsuit that happened the Friday before your caucus and the restraining order that was out there as well.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So I don't want to take too long. Yeah. I need to make sure I kind of keep it going. There's just a lot, and I'm trying to figure out what to focus on, but, okay. So let me just say, okay. We got a couple of different issues in these, not a couple, but there's numerous issues actually in these counties. However, the process, believe it or not, RPW wanted to kick it to the district and say, hey, here's the process to deal with any discrepancies or issues with delegates. So what you will do is this committee will review any complaints that were sent in, and there was complaints sent to the Constitution Committee. But then those complaints also need to be sent to the Credentials Committee to look over. So the committee had looked over, and I just want to make it clear, I had nothing to do with the decision-making process when it comes to any of these three counties. I did have to submit or actually it was Ty Bodden. Ty Bodden had to submit the deadlines, or he had to submit the list of counties and when they turned in their delegate lists in by, because that was one of the things that they had to look over. They had to look over that, and then to look over when did each county pay their dues by. In fact, I was like, my check seemed like it took forever to get to, the district treasurer and for my county party. And I kept checking to make sure, did it get there yet? So, I'm trying to make sure I get the deadline, but those were two of the issues. Now, some of this is uncharted territory, obviously, because usually the Credentials Committee is pretty monotonous, and you're looking at like, oh, are there, is everybody a member? Did they pay their dues on time? Or is there any, were there any complaints about like, oh, somebody wasn't really a member or something? Usually don't look in like as deep as what was looked at.
Yeah, because usually isn't like the Credentials Committee, isn't that just essentially a rubber stamp on what the counties do? Whereas
Yeah.
so
when somebody comes in and you check them in at the table, you say, okay, you're an accredited delegate. Like, we're screening you to make sure that you're actually a delegate and you're approved.
Right.
And usually what will happen is the Credentials Committee does have to present their report they have to present it to the caucus, and then the caucus will vote to accept it. It's usually really routine and boring. But they were looking at, and I didn't even know that WPACA was an issue. Honestly, I had no idea. So what happened was they made their decisions. I found out what their decisions were, and I was shocked. I was like, really? They were that strong on it? I mean, I was kind of like, honestly, I was like, this is going to look a certain way. Like, I honestly knew. I was like, great, this is going to look a certain way.
Well, let's be clear. The Credentials Committee's job, to your point, Ed, is to review the memberships and make sure they're in good standing.
Right.
If they met the deadline, that's their job to make certain.
Right. If there's any discrepancies, they would vote, and they go county by county and see if there are any discrepancies. They go over those and they decide what they make a recommendation. I want to make it clear, there was no decision that like it was somehow a hard decision where it was set in stone. It was a recommendation by the committee based on the evidence they saw, based on what they reviewed. So they were making recommendations. What would have happened is if everything, would have run its course. And I, by the way, a couple things, I reached out to a member of the committee and I said, hey, do you think you guys would be willing to revisit this? Like, maybe, find a little more, middle ground.
Sure.
This person did not want to, and he felt, I wasn't in the meeting. I don't know what they looked at. I know a little bit from the report that came out, but I didn't see all the complaints and all the stuff that they were looking at. So I don't know, maybe they were right. I based on this, what I saw on the surface, I thought, maybe some of that could be pulled back a little bit. I felt in Brown County that the 5 should have been seated because I felt like they were disenfranchised and it wasn't fair to them. They were good members of good standing. It doesn't matter if you like someone or not. It's not like I like this person, they can be a delegate. I don't like this person, they can't be a delegate. If we're getting into that, that's to me messed up. It shouldn't be, oh, we've had issues with this person. Well, gosh, I've had issues with people in my own county that drive me nuts, but they're good people. But we're all going to have personality clashes at times. We're going to have disagreements. I'm not going to keep someone from being a delegate if there's enough delegate spots, just because I'm not a big fan of theirs. And so, or because maybe I have a disagreement with them. So I was thinking, well, I think those 5 should be seated. I honestly did not expect it to be not seat the rest and seat the 5. Now, I think they felt the process was based on the complaints they had looked at. I think they felt so strongly, which is that it was not a fair process, that they made that decision. Again, I think if it would have played out based on all the conversations I had, if it made it to the caucus where there wasn't a lawsuit, I think the delegates there would have made a reasonable decision and found some middle ground. I could tell you that the 3 counties did not want to find any middle ground whatsoever. They wanted every single delegate seated. They did not want any of the 5 seated. And so again, I was trying to figure out if there was a middle ground, and it seemed like not. So what happened was the Friday night before the caucus, I get a call from someone saying, basically, look at CCAP. And I had been, I would say, threatened to be, that I was, you don't want to be sued, Steph. I mean,
lawfare seems to be the threat of the last several years. I mean, and it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, well, yeah, but I also see it as becoming more of a tool on the right as well, too, because we've seen it here, we've seen it in other states, and even just the threat of it, because now you're involving time and money and dragging someone's name through the mud, through an actual official capacity. You're listed on CCAP, there it is. And I don't know. It just seems dirty to me, but please, that's just my hot take in this moment. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the frustrating thing was, again, I felt like, and I want to explain why I didn't go out there and put a bunch of stuff out there trying to clarify everything, because I had many people who cared about me say, Steph, don't respond to don't defend yourself. Don't clarify. Don't try to argue. You're just going to get, in a back and forth. It's going to waste your time. I mean, and the other thing was, I was getting severely what I felt bullied. I was getting texts. I was getting emails. I was being blasted on social media, shaming me, berating me, slandering me. I was being called little girl. Or maybe that was after. I'm trying to remember. It's all kind of a blur. But I felt like I was being isolated and shamed. And there are 10 counties in the 8th. 10 counties. So just looking at Cheryl's comment. So for me, it was really hard because I did explain some things in email threads, but I felt very piled on. And so I had been through 4 months of, a lot of us were just tired in the district. We were exhausted. It was dealing with a lot of divisiveness. We were just drained. And so it was like, oh, can we just get this caucus over? It was just like, we just want to get through this. So I end up getting sued with a restraining order. A restraining order was filed against me, temporary restraining order, which was basically to force us to seat all the delegates, but not seat the 5. And so talking to the attorney that was assigned to me, I asked, what am I supposed to do here? So the goal was because of this pending lawsuit against me, it made sense we're going to have to postpone the caucus. Well, that's a tall task. You got everybody coming the next day. I don't have time really to get it out there and they probably would have showed up anyways. I'm sure some of those counties would have showed up anyways, even if I said we're canceling it. So there's very little time to figure this all out. I show up at caucus. I immediately feel intimidated because those guys are I can't tell you I pulled in the parking lot. My husband came with me because I was feeling a little nervous. And I saw those guys out front. I immediately tell my husband, pull in right here. I'm like, and I was kind of upset. I was like, I don't want to have to pass them in my vehicle. That's how I was feeling about them at that moment. So, and I'm sure that gives them great joy to know that they did that to me. So then we finally get around to where the back part is, or we make our way to the back to park to like bring stuff in, because we had a bunch of stuff that we had to set up for the caucus. So I get in there, and there's 2 sheriffs listed in the lawsuit against me. There's 2 sheriffs from each county, one sheriff from each county. One of the sheriffs is wearing their uniform outside of their jurisdiction and is just there as a delegate, but he's wearing his uniform and he's listed in a lawsuit against me. That made me feel uncomfortable. I felt intimidated. Then we decide to have, in order to try to postpone the caucus, I talked to numerous people about, hey, this is what I'm being it's being recommended by my lawyer to do. My lawyer couldn't be there. So for many different reasons, we were going to try to postpone. So we had to have a meeting with the executive committee, the chairs and vice chairs of the counties. And it immediately was hostile, uncomfortable. We were in the back part, like we're trying to do a private meeting, and it was getting really, a few of those guys were getting really hostile and like raising their voices. And I'm feeling demoralized at the moment. Honestly, I'm feeling so like what? It was like an out of body experience. What in the heck is going on here? So I'm doing my best, trying to hold together. I'm being yelled at for why is she not running the meeting? Like, well, you filed a lawsuit against me. And I don't know. I'm the defendant. You're the plaintiff. Are we supposed to even be interacting right now? I don't know. I don't have my lawyer here. So then it gets really pretty intense where one of them runs out, one of the chairmen runs out and yells, hey, everybody, Stephanie and Rich are trying to shut down the caucus. And he tries to fire up the crowd to get them to come back by us. So we're still starting to feel a little unsettled. And we had two sheriffs.
Now let me ask, what chair was that? Well, okay, you don't have to answer if you don't want. The only reason I'm asking is because one doesn't do that with an already riled up crowd unless you want to get them riled up even more. And I think that's actually, excuse my language, that is piss poor behavior and piss poor leadership. I'm just saying what I say.
Well, I could tell you at least, 6 of the chairs out of the district were pretty, well, maybe more than, there's one more that might've been upset too, but just 6 for sure were pretty upset with how things played out. And then 3 of them who had planned on voting to postpone the caucus voted to have it. And after the fact, they shared that they were concerned about stuff breaking out. And
was there a safety concern at any point?
Yes.
This is unfortunate because, this chaotic scene definitely, would cause anybody to say that this thing needs to stop, at least for right now. It's out of hand. It's out of control. There's no order here. There's no decorum.
There was somebody that one of the county chairs made that point actually, and he said this is out of order. And he was actually very well versed in Robert's rules. He was he made many good points. I would say there was definitely intimidation, a feeling of intimidation, and there was 2 sheriffs there, or from the sheriff's department, and then there were 2 private security hired because of some people had reached out to RBW saying we don't feel comfortable. We want more security because we don't feel comfortable coming to this caucus. There was, I know of one person for sure. I don't know for sure if there were more than that person that didn't come because they were concerned for safety. But I will just say that, so after the meeting that we had, where we ended up adjourning to have the caucus, it took everything in me to pull it together. And thank God I was able to make it through the caucus. I was able to speak, because the candidates had a chance to speak. I'm not going to get into all the other issues that happened at the caucus. I think that just paints a general picture. So Ken won. There were people that were going to vote for me that switched their votes because I think they, in the midst of a chaos, Ken is very good at convincing people of things. And so, which is their right to vote. It's like their right they want to switch their vote, fine. But I think the confusion and chaos of the moment was taken advantage of. I never want to go through that ever again. And I've been involved.
It seems to me, and I see Joel is chiming in, it seems to me, a lot of this comes down to, you wouldn't have did that if a man was in your face, and scoring you down. And that's part of the problem here. That I feel some misogyny going on just a little bit, and that's a problem for me. And it's something about men who pounce on women and try to corner, bullying. So I never liked bullies. I never liked, this type of behavior. And no one saw the foresight. Say, yeah, let's shut this whole thing down. It's out of control. It's out of control.
Yeah. Well, and, I'm in a better place emotionally, mentally now. I broke down after, it was like I had just been through. I mean, I know it sounds crazy to some people, and sometimes I've talked to a few other people in the district, well, several people in the district, including some of the people that were rejected as delegates. We've all kind of just discussed everything, and we're like it's good to know, like, when I get reassured that I'm not crazy for feeling the way I do, it's like, okay, I'm not crazy. Okay, that's good. Because you start questioning your sanity. You start thinking, am I overreacting here? Like, why? But I have this response when, I had to cut communication off from certain people because it made me feel uncomfortable. And I've never been like that before in politics. Except for crazy left-wing people, there are those people out there that you're like, okay, blocking that person's crazy, right? So I've had that a handful of times from the other side, but I never dealt with it like this on my own side. And I just, for my own mental health and emotional well-being, I'm like, I have to disengage here. I have to remove myself a little bit from this as best I can. And so I'm in a much better place now, but I can tell you, even coming on here stirs up these feelings. And it's like, it's like I'm reliving some of it all over again. And again, I'm sure some of those guys would, mock me or something for feeling like that. Like, oh, get over it, or it's just politics. I've dealt with politics since 2012. I've been in a lot of high pressure situations. I've dealt with angry people before. I've had to say no to things that I haven't felt comfortable with. I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe in, but I've never been through anything like this that I've been through in the last 4 months. And I'm tired of the bullying. I'm tired of people treating others like garbage because they don't align with them 100%. And so I'm speaking out because I feel like it has to stop. And we need people to feel, there are women who are afraid of retaliation. So they don't want to speak up. So I guess because I feel like I want to be a voice for people who are afraid to speak up. And I'm a little nervous. Am I going to get texts from people? By the way, you guys both know about this text. I got a text at 1:30 a.m.
Yeah.
last Sunday. Yeah, it was a week ago. And I woke up the next morning, and I was like, it was a 414 number. And it said, be careful who you associate with or have on your lives, especially especially when mentioning levers. I had no idea what that meant, but I had just had you guys on my Facebook Live, I don't know, a few days before that, I think.
Just a day or two before, right?
Yeah, it was shortly before. So I'm like, and so I just responded, I don't know who this is, ? But it was not a direct threat. I would say it was a veiled threat. It was like, be careful who you associate with. And I'm thinking, are you talking about Orlando? And it was a 414 number. I traced it to some woman, 61-year-old woman who I'm like, I don't know who that is, but unless it was some redirected, unless somebody.
Well, and in all likelihood, it was probably pinged off of,
right, pinged off
of towers.
Like some woman living in an apartment complex that he doesn't know. Orlando didn't know who was. But those kind of text messages, and by the way, let me just say this, just a few days ago, somebody associated with me who's a friend in our district, I won't say who or what county, received the most grotesque, threatening voice message at their county party office. It sounded like a serial killer. So this person, and it sounded like he was on our side, I say that loosely,
right,
was very explicit, about what he wanted to do. And it shook me when I heard it. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? Like, these are volunteer positions. These are, this person is a good person who works really hard. And all of us have worked our butts off. Just because we don't align 100% in a box that is created that we're supposed to fit in doesn't mean that you should be threatening people, bullying people. And again, because it's just been allowed to fester. And I admit, like, I probably am too kind and gracious at times in politics. I probably am too patient with people. And I have people say, like, oh, Steph, how are you so patient? I'm like, well, it's the Lord. It's like Holy Spirit. Like, the only way I can be patient with some people is like my faith just convicts me about that. But having said that, I probably put up with too much at times. I probably, there's a time to turn the other cheek, but certain behaviors should not be acceptable. And so to me, I'm learning a lot about, okay, first of all, don't trust everybody. There's going to be people who stab you in the back. You can't confide in everybody. You can't put up with people bullying and shaming you and shaming other people. And it's not just about me. It's not. There are other people in the district who are so exhausted with this. And it's going to drive away a lot of good people out of the party. So so I will just say it has to be dealt with. It has to be dealt with.
Let me address a couple of things here right now. Now, obviously, I'm not going to respond back to every chat and everything, and I know it's been a hot chat session in here. Things are going back and forth, and people got opinions going one way or the other. And cool, everybody so far you guys have not been out of line. Thank you very much for that. But there's always one exception. Wes, stop spamming my damn chat room about Robin Voss. I don't care about Robin Voss in the context of this discussion. I am not talking about Robin Voss in the context of this or any other discussion right now. And if I want to talk about Robin Voss, I'll bring Robin Voss on the show and bring it up.
Can I clarify something about
warning?
That?
This is your only warning. Next time, I'm banning you. That's it.
I just want to say,
Stephanie, go ahead, please.
That's okay. Along those, I want to clarify something. I have not talked to Robin Voss since I think I saw him in Milwaukee at the RNC convention. I have not talked to him since then. I'm sure I should be banned according to some people because I said hi to him. I am positive he's had nothing to do with what's going on in the district. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Now, again, people can jump to conclusions if they want. There are people in the grassroots who are fed up with this. Grassroots people. It's not RPW. And I'm not saying there are people at RPW that are okay with what's going on. I'm saying there are people, this isn't grassroots versus RPW. This is grassroots versus grassroots. Yeah. This is people clashing at the grassroots level who are tired of feeling like they have to do every demand of I'm not going to, again, if you want me to get on board with you, don't bully me because I'm not going to be bullied into doing something. So talk to me like a human being. Try to work it out with me. I will. I'm actually a pretty fair person and I try to be a good listener. And I feel like I have a good record of that. And anybody who knows me in my own county party or even across the state knows I'm willing to work with Patriot Group people. I'm willing to work with Tea Party and I'm willing to work with people even who aren't big fans of Trump, even though, as long as they're not like rabid anti-Trump people, but if they're like, yeah, they have issues with Trump, that's fine. I'll work with you where I can. And I don't even always agree with Trump myself, but I'm like, I always am trying to work with people in my county and in our district and even, across the state where we have a lot more in common than not. And so there has been a toxic environment that has been there for a while now. And it's just exploded. And so, I've just been really, it's funny because I don't want it to change me where I'm bitter and I stay bitter, because that's not good.
That's my job. That's my job.
I mean, I've removed myself enough to kind of like reset my mind and like I'm in a healthier place now, but I'm to the point where I'm so fed up that I'm just like, I mean, I numerous times was like, what are we doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? But I want to stand for what's right. I've been trying to hang in there. And again, I want to stop this. I mean, it's just been so out of hand. And I feel gaslighted. I feel like I've been gaslighted a lot because everything is flipped on me. Like I'm the bad guy. I'm the one who's being divisive. And I'm like, anybody who knows me knows like I'm really not a divisive person, although I'll divide between good and evil. So if I stand for, I'm going to be against abortion or I'm going to be against, corruption in our government, all of that. So yeah, I'll be divisive on those issues, but I'm not a divisive person trying to create strife amongst our party members. That's not who I am. And so, I'm willing to disagree, but not do it in a way that's destructive. So anyways.
Well, that's interesting. That is interesting because I've noticed over the last, I'd say 3 years in particular, there's a line in particular that's being used quite a bit by those that I'll just say they're in opposition to RPW. They're Republicans. They're disaffected liberals that have joined the party recently, patriot groups, whatever. And the line that I hear often is they tell us to get in line. But I notice when the roles are reversed, when they get into a chairmanship or whatever, it's the exact same damn thing. Get in line.
Yeah,
and it's like, wait a minute. So
100%.
what are we doing here? Are we trying to decide who's going to be captaining the ship? I mean, more so than, you know what? Hey, we want to try to, reform this county or this caucus and make it better. Or are we trying to tear it down? Because I have seen people over the last 3 years where they are literally, they will tell you, if we don't get our way, we're going to tear the whole damn thing down. There were people that have been out there and they were carrying on in 2022. And they said, if we don't get our way, then you know what? It doesn't make any difference who gets elected, if it's a Democrat or Republican, because it's all the same to them.
Can I make a point there?
Please.
Leading up to caucus, one of the meetings that was thrown together last minute, which I was willing to have a meeting to discuss stuff, but what they wanted to do was something that the executive committee didn't have the authority to do. And it was all last minute. I said, can we hold off? And I was willing to reschedule, or not reschedule, but I was willing to hold a meeting the next night if we had to. But at that meeting, basically, they proposed putting out a press release. Those guys proposed putting out a press release to tell people not to vote for Brad Schimmel. Now,
Ouch.
one of the county chairs had pushed back, convinced them not to do that.
That's just really weak leadership. It's really weak. It's really petty and small. And these again are individuals who call themselves men, and they're complaining and whining because they don't get their way, but they want to ascend to leadership. And you say, well, since I can't get my way, then I'm going to say, don't vote for Brad. That's really weak, and it's a childish game. Again, you see this is the leadership, I guess, is that the people supported. That's not cool. It's just not.
Names. Well,
it's just not.
Well, that was Joel.
It'll come out, Jimmy.
That was Joel.
It'll come out, the names or whatever. It'll come out because again, to say, well, if we don't get what we want, then and again, I'm one, follow the Ed Delgado line, and you get one rebuttal. But a lot of these people really say, they talk out both sides of their mouth. They want unity, but at the same time they rag against whatever they're trying to be a part of. That's called double talk. So you can run double talk on people who can't think fast enough to keep up with what you're saying. That's what I see. Right. See a whole lot of hustle going on, and You're trying to confuse people. But cats like myself and Delgado, who can keep up with what you're saying, you're talking off both sides of your mouth. That's what that's called.
Yeah. Well, and it, yeah, I mean, I would say right now, this is a process for me of working through my trepidation of, like, you know, naming names. I mean, it's like kind of baby steps for me to like be speaking right now on this stuff. And, you know, I was bombarded for a while there. And so it's kind of like, I'm trying to, and I wanted to speak up sooner too. But again, unless people have been in it with us, like, and when I say us, I mean some of the chairs in the district and some other people, some other grassroots volunteers, that have, again, there's people who have been afraid of retaliation. They don't want to be named. So I'm hoping when I speak up that other people might be willing to speak up and share, you know, their concerns or where their experiences. I just know honestly, after that one voice message that was left for a friend of mine, I'm just like, what the heck is going, like, I'm just like, this is volunteer. Is this worth it? But again, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to, and I want to make it clear, because I'm sure I'll be accused of, like, I'm just doing what RPW tells me to do, or, I'm just defending RPW. I'm my own person. And so I'm not going to do anything against my own will if RPW wants me to do something. So I'm not going to be pushed from anybody, from any side of anything. I'm not going to sell my soul for money, which seems like a lot of people want to do that these days. I'm not going to sell my soul for money, for position, for rubbing elbows with people, for red carpet treatment. Right. I'm not doing this so I could meet somebody. I mean, I'm.
You're supposed to stand up for your convictions.
Yeah.
I see a couple yahoos in the chat, and Ed may not address it, but I see a couple yahoos, and I
wish I'll throw one out right here. I'll throw one out here. Should we bring up Milwaukee County? Because we're going to bring up Milwaukee County soon enough.
These people right here are the type of individuals. As a man stands in front of you, you won't say these type of slick out of your mouth type of comments. You're a keyboard warrior, and I dare and challenge you to say that to a real man, to say these type of things. You're victim shaming because you don't like that she stood up against some of you guys and got the nerve saying, well, you're playing a victim now. This is what I'm talking about. This is that this is that slick talk that real men, real alpha men, you say that too, I'm gonna stop. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what gaslighting looks like. When the divisive people, if I don't jump, when they say jump and I don't say how high, they don't like that they can't control me. When they found out that they couldn't control me and manipulate me, I'm stronger than they think I am, because you can't control me with fear, with your intimidation tactics, with your money. You can't control me. And that's why you're so mad. And you're mad that I'm speaking up right now. So you're freaking out. I'm going to speak up, because I'm not going to let fear control me. And I'm not going to allow other people who have gone through similar things continue to live in fear. So I'm not playing the victim. I'm not the one here who started this stuff. Everybody who knows me knows that's ridiculous to claim that. I mean, it's just people who know my character know that that's ridiculous. And if somebody wants to believe false things about me, then so be it. I'm comfortable with who I am. I've had conversations with certain people high up who have my back, who told me, you know what, Stephanie, no matter what happens, you know who you are, a good person doing the right things. And that's somebody who means a lot to me, that person who said that to me. So I know who I am. And they can slander all they want. They can lie about me for power, for position. I'm speaking truth to power. I am speaking truth to power. So it doesn't matter if a congressman or anybody else tries to if they're going to disagree with me, fine. I'm not going to agree with somebody just because they're in a position of power. So that's where I stand, and I'm not going to be pushed and pressured into doing something against my convictions.
Yeah, I see a lot of people here. I mean, like I said, it's going back and forth in the comments here. And I think it's interesting because there's a lot of people making some really wild assumptions in here. Not even related to what we're talking about, but it's just kind of wild. It's just kind of wild.
Casper's one of those guys. Casper, I'll get with you later. He's from Milwaukee County. He wants to hear what I got to say. Okay. It's not really about me. I'm just co-hosting with Ed. It's really
right.
I'll get with you another time, Casper, because I know your situation, Mr. Casper, the friendly ghost. I know your situation.
So has RPW taken an interest in this? I mean, what's kind of been their stance on this?
What's funny is I feel like the district has actually had to deal with it more than RPW, but I have been. I mean, the thing is, there's been a habit of, not from everybody included in this conversation, not from all the counties per se, but from a couple people that they don't care what the rules are, and they've said as much. They've said the Constitution is the stupidest thing they've ever, the stupidest thing ever. The RPW Constitution is the stupidest thing ever. You can change it whenever you want. I'm like, well, no, actually you can't. You can't suspend the Constitution. You can suspend the rules, but that's not the Constitution. You can't suspend stuff against the Constitution. You have to go through a process to change that. Okay. So there's a habit there of breaking rules. If somebody has an attitude of, I'm just going to do what I want, you can't have an organization run, function normally. If people are just going to do whatever they want, if they're going to ignore rules, if RPW, I mean, I know there's a situation in Milwaukee right now, Orlando. So you're dealing with some stuff right now too. And that might be a conversation for another time, but it's chaos when you've got county parties wanting to do whatever they want. And we don't care what you say. I've had one of the county chairs say, have RPW come after me. I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. When I confronted about violating the Constitution on something, I don't care. Just have them come after me. I mean, that was like an actual comment. Now, again, I have been very gracious, maybe too gracious, because I had people frustrated with me that I was trying to work with these guys. And I've given them the benefit of the doubt time and again. I've tried to work with them where I could. I wanted us all to do well last year because we needed to win. I was willing to put differences aside to help us all win and make sure Trump won and others.
But hasn't that been the biggest problem? Hasn't that been the biggest problem in this state? It's always, there's an election coming up, so we can't say anything. There's an election coming up. We can't address that. And
I agree. I mean, I'm partly to blame probably for just saying, I mean, I probably got people to hold off actually. I was like, no, let's work through this. Let's work through this. People probably were mad at me at the time. Well, I know they were. Because I'm trying to work. I was trying to work with these guys. And I found that, you know what? I was just a tool to them. They don't care about me. They don't. They wanted to manipulate me. The fact that I am a nice person, diplomatic, they took advantage of it. I see it now. They never cared about me. I mean, they'll stab me in the back the second they think they can get whatever they wanted. If it meant throwing me under the bus, they would do it, and they have. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
It's for us to discern, right? You know, these individuals took kindness for weakness, and to have this level of this manipulation and all this goofy stuff, right? All this real goofy, texting and all this, trying to power. It's real goofy. It's real petty. Again, none of these individuals, and I might come to say convincing, none of these individuals will say any of this stuff halfway to me or Ed. Half the men in this chat who want to claim they saying all this, they talking real slick, but you never say it to my face. I'm not hard to find. I'll probably be one of the few black people walking around. So they'll never say that. And then they have the nerve to say
there'll be three. There's you, me, and others.
You know, it didn't. They say stuff like, "Well, you're a good person." No, stop with the manipulation, my friend. Keep that, as we say on the block, keep that same energy when you was popping your mouth off. Don't switch up now when I see you. Don't switch up now in the chat. Now, oh, you're a good person. No. Keep the same energy that you've been having, because that's who you are. So I can address you where you are. Don't change up now. Keep the same energy.
Well, and if they think, thanks, Orlando. If they think I'm a good person, then I'm surprised by, you know, how you treat people that you think are a good person. I mean, again, I think because I was so gracious and wanted to believe the best, thought we could work through some things. They saw that as an opportunity to take advantage. And that's my bad. I guess it's my bad because you know what? I've been involved in politics long enough. It's really hard to know who to trust now. I
think as it relates to trust, I mean, maybe I'm just overly cynical, but I trust nobody. I like to get along with everybody. I like to have a conversation with everybody. I don't have to like you in order to have a conversation with you. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that don't like me and are watching right now, participate in the chat, and then I'll probably come up and, you know, shake hands with me come next month at convention. Great. But you know what? At the end of the day, I really just want to beat the left. This infighting that we've been having, and it's been going on for at least 3 years. Now, I know they had infighting before when Tea Party movement happened, but I've talked to a few people that were part of the Tea Party movement here in Wisconsin. I wasn't in Wisconsin at the time, but I talked to some of those folks, and they'll tell you it wasn't like what you're seeing now. What you're seeing now is far more aggressive, far worse. It is almost WWE style entertainment, really, if you think about it. You know, it's like who's going to cut the best promo, who's going to talk the most smack, and I think in the process we are losing the message. We are losing trying to draw people into this conservative movement, and then we got, you know, people saying stupid crap out here. And Dan BSR. I'm pretty sure that's you for Badger State Resistance. There's your shout out. Saying that Stephanie is a Democrat, and for those of you with sensitive ears, put your earmuffs on. That's one of the dumbest fucking things I've heard. Just stop. I apologize, Stephanie. I said I wasn't going to be swearing on this episode. Normally, I cuss like a champ. I've been really good.
You've been really good.
You know what? I just had to drop that one. My bad.
I'm not a Democrat. I like President Trump. I support him. I don't fit in a little box. I don't fit in a box. And I think that upsets some people. And I don't fit in a box on this side in this faction or that faction or that faction. I've never liked being put in a box. One of the reasons I didn't want to get involved in the party in the first place was because I didn't want to fit in a Republican box and have somebody put me into a category. However, this party, the values that they espouse overall, even though there's disagreements, you know, the past few years at times, that's the party I align with most. So I'm using it as a vehicle to fight for what I believe in. So no, I'm not Liz Cheney. Maybe, you know, I mean, we talk about people who fought against Trump, and, you know, if you want to call people rhinos, there's certainly a case to be made for certain people, but
I'm a rhino. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm a rhino. I've always said I was a rhino, and I just want to throw that out there because I remember at convention, this was, I don't know, it was in 22, and I was talking with Adam Steen. Came up to him, and we were just kind of, you know, shooting the breeze, you know, and I like Adam Steen. He was like, I think I was the first person he interviewed with back then, and we were having a conversation, and he was, you know, getting all happy because he's like, yeah, the rhinos are going to get ousted. And this young lady comes up, and she starts talking mad trash about quote unquote rhinos. And I'm just standing there. And I go, I'm a rhino. What? Yeah, I'm a rhino. You know, I'm a conservative, and the Republican Party happens to be the vehicle that's closest aligned to my values that it actually has a chance of winning office. So I'm a rhino. Oh, you're the good kind. Really? Now I'm the good kind. There's a good kind now all of a sudden. This is what we're doing. Okay.
Delgado, I just want to play my
Cap.
part. I just want to play my part in being your producer tonight. My best. It is at an hour and 40. I know we
are an hour 40.
We talk about an hour and a half tops, so that did not.
You know, and that was a funny part, because ideally the show is only supposed to be about an hour. We gave allowance to go about an hour and a half, and in typical form, we're at an hour 40.
Maybe we need to set it like even, smaller time, and then then we'll actually make it.
That just won't work. We know that. A lot of good comments here in the chat room. Thank you, guys. Patriot say resistance. If you're not Dan, are you Justin? And if you're Justin, congratulations on the little boy in the home and all the other good stuff going your way. I do like Justin Smicka. He's a decent dude. Let's see here. We got a lot of stuff out. Man, a ton. All right. Do we want to wrap this up here and perhaps go for another episode later on this week? What are we thinking?
You can wrap.
Yep. Probably good to
all
wrap
right.
up.
We'll take this offline here. So with that being said, I'm going to give a 30-second commentary to Stephanie. Go, then Orlando, then I'll close out the show here.
Well, I certainly feel like it was good to have this conversation, to share a different perspective than what people have been hearing. I'm always going to stand up for what I believe in, and even when it's uncomfortable. And I can't control what everybody thinks about me or what they believe about me. I'm just going to keep standing for what I believe in. And I know who I am. I'm a conservative who believes that our government has become way too corrupt. And I'm glad that President Trump is doing things like Doge, and we've got real reforms happening. And, people can say what they want, but I know who I am, and I'm going to continue to fight for what I believe in. And maybe it's not in the party. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. One way or the other, I'm going to continue, but I'm not going to allow myself to be intimidated or bullied by people and who want to, call me something that I'm not. So I'm going to keep fighting for what I believe in, regardless of what people say.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. We'll definitely catch up soon. Now, brother Orlando Owens, I'm going to let you close this bad boy out.
Man, I just want to say thanks for being on tonight with Steph. A lot of great insight. Gave her perspective of it. I guess the story is going to drop tomorrow on one of the news outlets. So we'll see. I know individuals want to know what happened in Milwaukee County with the redoing of the North Branch Caucus. What I will say is this: the RPW did, give some very definitive directives on what should be happening. That didn't happen. There was another caucus held this past yesterday, which was illegal, but we'll wait and we'll let the process play out. And, we'll go from there.
All right, Orlando Owens, we find you at Orlando4WI.com, right?
Hey, man, we still doing it. Project Move the Needle. I hope we can be engaged in the next upcoming races. We were not, and I'd love to do. I've made a few posts on, where's Turning Point and where's Turning Point? What did they do exactly, and why should we be, falling under their, their strategy, of winning, and hadn't seen it yet from this election with Schimmel, Kinzer, with Dewey Strobel, with Eric Hovey. I mean, that's a pretty good ring of, I like to see
questions that need to be answered. Absolutely.
Exactly. So if we're going to have these discussions, let's have these now. Let's stop saying we can't talk about it because of the election. It's time to have these discussions now about good, bad, and indifferent. If you got a problem with RPW, you got a problem with Turning Point, you got a problem with me, whatever the case may be, now let's have it out right now. Have the discussion. Let's work these things out if they can be worked out. Some of them won't, but
yeah. And sometimes you got to be okay with just saying, you know what, we may be on the same side, but we can't operate together, and that's
There
fine.
you go. And that's okay, because I'm cool with having the same jersey, but sometimes we don't have the same mission.
Right.
Delgado, you the
We
man.
ain't hanging. All right, brother. Thank you very much. We'll catch up here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want to thank you guys for joining in here in the conversation tonight. I know this has stirred up a lot of passions. You got people that are, well, I don't want to here. I'll oversimplify this. We got a lot of people that are for Stephanie, a lot of people that are for the, I guess, with that, no, it's not Bow. Is it Boo? Yeah, it would be Bow. Brown, Oconto, whatever. Doesn't matter. But we do have to keep certain things in mind. And there is a reason I wanted to have this conversation. One is I know Stephanie. She's a friend of mine. She's somebody I get along very well with. And she's somebody that, I'll be honest with you, a couple of years back, she's one of the reasons, along with several other people, that got me involved into the county party, into the state party, so that I can learn what the inner workings of this is. Now, anybody who knows me, you know that I am extremely critical of RPW. I've never not been. But I'm going to ask you guys, please stop making me defend RPW. Some of the stuff is just out of pocket. It's out of line. And I think, well, there's a discussion that needs to be had, and hopefully we can have it here. Like I've told you guys before, if you guys know somebody, you got a suggestion, somebody you want to have on the show, hit me up. Let's set something up and we can do that. Going forward, typically like to try to do shows Tuesday nights. I'm not sure. I think we may just do them as we get them scheduled and just kind of work from there. I'll try to give you guys a little bit more notice than what we do. Please make sure you share this show. Please make sure you like it. Throw some commentary in there, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Good night. God bless you. God bless the great state of Wisconsin. I'm out.